Johnny Carson was an interesting guy. He told people about the 8 beautiful women who were on his show. For a time, 30 years, Johnny Carson had a show that people watched every night. He would talk to people from all areas of the entertainment business. When he was sitting at his desk, he was not just talking to people. Johnny Carson was really paying attention to how people act. One of the people who worked on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson said that he noticed things about people that they did not even know about themselves. Johnny Carson was very good at understanding people. This guy was really good at reading people. He could see the changes in their faces, like when they were not telling the whole truth. He could also tell when someone was sitting or standing in a way that did not feel natural to them. He was very good at figuring out how people really felt, even when they were trying to hide it. When it came to women, he was even better at paying attention to these things. Beautiful women were something he noticed clearly. In the years after he stopped being on television, Johnny Carson would sometimes talk to his friends about all the people who came on his show. One night at his house in Malibu, Johnny Carson had a drinks and started talking about the women he thought were the most beautiful. He said there were 8 women who really stood out to him. Johnny Carson told his friends about these women when he was feeling relaxed at home. This was not about how they looked, one of his friends said. Johnny Carson thought these women were special in some way. Johnny talked about this thing called presence. It is a quality that makes people really like you. When someone has presence, the cameras like them, and the audience gets really quiet. Sometimes it even makes the people on television who are really good at their jobs get a little up. Johnny Carson made a list of the 8 beautiful women who were ever on The Tonight Show. Number 1, Raquel Welch. When Raquel Welch walked onto the stage of The Tonight Show for the time in 1970, something really cool happened. Johnny Carson, who was known for staying calm, was left without words for a moment. This was a deal for Johnny Carson because he was a man who always liked to be in control and have perfect timing. The fact that Raquel Welch was able to make him look a little confused, even if it was for a few seconds, says a lot about how amazing she was. A person who operated the camera during some of Raquel Welch's appearances on the show remembered that when Raquel Welch came out, the whole studio reacted in a way. You could actually feel everyone in the room taking a breath at the same time when Raquel Welch appeared. Camera 2 was the one that took pictures of people coming in. It was always told to take its time. The director would say, "Do not rush this camera 2. Just take your time on this one. No one is going to say anything about it." The director would tell camera 2 to keep going slowly. Camera 2 was very important because it took pictures of guest entrances. The people in charge of camera 2 were always saying that camera 2 should take its time. What made Welch really special was not just how beautiful she looked, although that is true. It was how confident she was when she walked into a room. Welch was different from a lot of actresses who would make jokes about themselves or pretend to be humble. Welch knew she had an effect on people. She was okay with that. Carson said something about her when the cameras were not rolling. She doesn't enter a room, she takes it over. And he really meant that as a compliment. Johnny liked it when his guests knew they had power and used it on purpose. Welch was one of those people who understood her power, and she used it deliberately. Raquel knew what she was doing every time she was on television. She was really good at being on camera. The way she moved and talked was perfect. It was like she was teaching people how to be good on television. She would uncross her legs at the right time. Raquel was very good at this. Watching Raquel on television was a way to learn how to be comfortable on camera. Raquel was a natural. Number 2, Sophia Loren. She was like an Italian woman who made America's most calm host feel nervous. When Sophia Loren first went on The Tonight Show in 1979, the whole room in Studio One felt different away. Sophia Loren did not just bring her looks, she also brought a kind of old-fashioned elegance and sexiness that was very different from the glamour of Hollywood. Just the way Sophia Loren walked in being confident and taking her time showed that she was not like guests on the show. Carson was really taken aback during his talk with Loren. A director remembered that Johnny's whole demeanor changed. He leaned and laughed a bit too hard and kept fixing his tie. These little things showed that the guy who was always so calm on television was really impressed. Loren was different from stars who usually seem friendly and laid back. She had a seriousness and sophistication about her that came from Europe, and it caught Carson off guard. The way she spoke with her accent made even ordinary things sound beautiful. Johnny Carson was not used to meeting someone like Loren. Her European, mature way of being really got his attention. One writer said that when you met Sophia Loren, you did not really interview Sophia Loren, you just tried to get through the meeting with Sophia Loren. What I find interesting about Loren is how different she is from what you see on screen. She looks like a movie star. When she talks, she is really thoughtful and deep. People think she has a pretty face, but she is actually a woman who knows a lot about movies like Italian neorealism and what is real in Hollywood. She also talks about what it was like growing up in Italy during the war. Loren is beautiful. That is not all. What makes her so interesting is that she is smart, thinks about things, and's always fully there when she talks to you. Loren is just really compelling because of who she's Loren. Number 3. Bo Derek. When Bo Derek showed up in 1979, not long after the movie 10 came out, something really strange happened. The audience at Studio One, who were always loud and cheering, just stopped making any noise when Bo Derek walked out on stage. It was not cheers or applause, just a lot of people sitting there in silence. The host had to wait a bit before he could even start talking because everyone was so surprised to see Bo Derek. The people who worked with Derek on the show said that even after they saw her in movies, nothing got them ready for what she was like in life. Derek was really something when you saw her in person. The camera just could not catch everything about Derek. Unlike some people who become famous fast, Derek did not have a bunch of charming things to say that she had practiced. Derek was really beautiful. What Carson liked most about her was that she did not seem to know how beautiful she was. This was what really caught Carson off guard about Derek. Johnny once said that she was like a living statue, and that she really threw him off his rhythm. He would forget what he was going to ask her because of how different she looked from how she acted. She looked really extraordinary. She acted very ordinary and down to earth. This really affected everyone in the studio. The cameraman would keep the camera on her for longer than they planned to. The pages would just stand there near her. Even Doc Severinsen and the band would get quiet. One of the operators made a joke that you could hear the air conditioning when she was on because nobody dared to move. Johnny said this about her because Johnny and the rest of the people in the studio were really surprised by the combination of her appearance and her demeanor. The entire studio was affected by her, the studio, including the cameraman and the pages and Doc Severinsen and the band. Number 4. Elizabeth Taylor. When she was scheduled to appear, it was a deal. The big bosses at NBC even came to the planning meetings before the show. When Elizabeth Taylor was on the show in 1992, it was one of the exciting moments in the later years of Carson's time on the show. Elizabeth Taylor did not usually give interviews. Just being around her changed the whole studio. Even the people who worked with presidents and famous people felt like they had to be on their behavior when Elizabeth Taylor was around. Taylor. Everyone made a big deal about it. The person in charge of the show came to say hello to her himself, and Carson even met her before they started filming, which is something he ever does. Johnny said that Taylor was like a queen of Hollywood, and she knew it, but he was not trying to be mean, he was just stating a fact. Taylor knew how important she was to people. She acted like it without pretending to be someone she was not. Taylor was a part of history, and Taylor knew it. So Taylor carried herself in a way that showed she was aware of Taylor's importance. Elizabeth Taylor walked into the room. Everyone noticed her. She was very calm and confident. When the people standing up clapped for her, Elizabeth Taylor nodded her head, smiled. It was a smile, but also a little bit like she was in charge. A man who took pictures said that some other people came in. Elizabeth Taylor was the one who really made an entrance. Elizabeth Taylor did not care what other people thought of her. Elizabeth Taylor was there. That was all that mattered. Number 5. Farrah Fawcett. The girl who was like sunshine with a smile that was really worth a lot of money. Farrah Fawcett had an impact in 1976. A poster of Farrah Fawcett wearing a swimsuit was sold to more than 12 million people, which made it the best-selling picture of a person that people wanted to hang up. When Farrah Fawcett went on The Tonight Show for the time, that year it was not long after Farrah Fawcett started working on Charlie's Angels. The people watching the show were so loud. They kept cheering for a long time that the host had to tell the people in charge to make the cheering sound shorter when the show was broadcast. This was one of those rare moments when the applause got too much to handle even for a super popular television talk show. A person who worked for NBC and was in charge of the audience that night said that Farrah's smile by itself caused a commotion. At that moment, Farrah Fawcett represented a mix of popular culture, her poster, her television show, and her style all coming together to create something that was more than just a famous person. When Farrah Fawcett walked out onto Johnny Carson's stage, the crowd's reaction was like what you would see at a Beatles concert rather than a usual talk show appearance. Farrah Fawcett was different from guests who seemed really cool and sophisticated or really sexy. Farrah Fawcett had this energy that people could not help but notice. She seemed like someone you could talk to. She was always happy and full of life. This is what made Farrah Fawcett special, according to Carson. Number 6. Diane Carroll. She was an elegant lady who did things first. When Diane Carroll walked onto the Tonight Show stage, she was not a pretty face. She was also a woman who had done something very important. Diane Carroll had broken barriers. As the first black woman to have her television series, Julia, in 1968, Diane Carroll was a big deal. She was glamorous. She was also very important to history. The host, Carson, treated Diane Carroll with a lot of respect. A person who helped make some of Diane Carroll's appearances on the show happen said she was really stunning and elegant. This person also said that Diane Carroll was always very calm and composed no matter what was happening. When people went on the Johnny Carson show, they usually looked really nervous sitting next to Johnny Carson. Not Carroll. She looked totally comfortable, like talking to Johnny Carson was something she did all the time. Johnny Carson was a deal on television, but Carroll did not seem to care. She just acted like being on the Johnny Carson show was no thing. She had a way about her that was really something. Her intelligence and the way she talked made people feel comfortable around her, but a little in awe. She was not afraid to show how smart she was. That was really great. She would talk about her job and the problems she had to deal with in the business, because it was not always easy for people who looked like her to succeed. Number 7. Ursula Andress, the Bond girl. She was really famous. When Ursula Andress went on The Tonight Show, people already thought she was a deal. This was in the 1960s, not long after she was in Dr. No. Ursula Andress came out of the water in a bikini in that movie. It was a famous scene. When Ursula Andress walked onto the stage with Carson, the people watching her were amazed. They did not just clap for Ursula Andress, they were in awe of her. Andress had a way of being really sure of herself when she was out in public. She was happy to accept praise from people. She answered their questions in a very straightforward way. One time when she was on a show, the host Carson got a little mixed up when he was introducing her. He seemed flustered, which is not something you usually see from him because he is always so prepared. That one little mistake really showed just how much Andress affected him. Number 8. Marilyn Monroe, the beautiful person who people still think about when they talk about The Tonight Show. Even though Marilyn Monroe died in 1962, which was a month before Carson started hosting the show, all the time Marilyn Monroe was still a big part of the show for a very long time. Carson would often talk about Marilyn Monroe, saying she was the beautiful woman who never got to sit in the guest chair. Marilyn Monroe was the one person Carson really wished he had gotten to meet on the show. Carson was really interested in Monroe. At first he thought of her as the sex symbol. As time went on, he started to see how complex she was. He learned that she was smart and vulnerable and really wanted to make art. Carson felt bad that people did not really know who Monroe was. He thought it would have been really cool to talk to her, because there was a difference between how people saw her and who she really was. Carson thought Monroe would have been a person to interview because of this difference between her public image and her real life. Monroe was a person, and Carson wished people could have seen that. In later years, Carson asked actresses who portrayed Monroe not about her looks, but about her inner life. He recognized that her beauty was only part of a much larger, tragic story. To Carson, Monroe represented the perfect talk show guest, extraordinary beauty combined with deep psychological complexity. Her absence remained one of the great what-ifs of his career, the interview he never got to conduct, and the woman who, in many ways, defined the standard against which all others were measured.